Hello everyone, this is Aaron Johnson with the Johnson iRacing team. I thought today I would walk you through how to create like a foil or chrome number for a car. So I thought maybe I'd walk through how to do that today. We're going to start out by learning how to find paint.net, which is a program that's similar to Photoshop, but it's free. And you can use it to do some of the things we're going to try to do today. So I've pulled up Google here. I'm going to type in paint.net download. As you can see, I've done this more than once. And I'm going to do a search. And that's going to bring you to this download paint.net. So you're going to go ahead and click on that. And then you'll see here the paint.net main screen. Don't click on that start button. That's not what you want. You want to roll down here to where it says download. You can certainly pay to get this on Windows 10 from the Microsoft Store, and if you have the cash, you might want to, because those donations help to expand and develop Paint.net, so the developers get part of that. Or you can download it for free here off .pdn, which is what I did. So you go ahead and click the download button, and then you'll follow the instructions to do the install. It's very straightforward and installs just like any other program. Once you've done that, you're going to be able to start and open paint.net, and when you do, the interface will look something like this. We do have a single problem though, and our problem is that if we want to find a template to paint, we end up having to have an extension, because the templates that are available through iRacing, and we'll go take a look at those, but the templates that are available through iRacing are PSD templates. So to get those templates, you have to launch the UI, and that's going to come up here. I think it's going to come up here. Let's see what happens. Here it comes. Yeah. So here's the UI is coming up now. So you have to launch the UI. And then you have to download the template that you're going to be interested in. And that template is a PSD file, which is, it's basically a Photoshop file. And Paint.net initially doesn't run Photoshop. Okay, so what you've got to do then, while this loads, we'll go do it, is you've got to find the DLL file that allows you to use PSD files. So to do that, you're going to go back to Google, and you're going to type in paint.net PSD plugin. And as you can see, I've done this more than once. Okay, that's going to take you to this folder right here, this page, and you're going to get the download PSD plugin 2.5.0. You would click that button, and you're going to have to deal with an ad here. Usually I just cancel out of these things when I can. You're going to see that the downloads come down here in the lower left hand corner. It's a .zip file. So you would open that .zip file. You're going to take this Photoshop DLL. You're going to right click and you're going to copy it. And then you're going to go to this PC, and you're going to go to your program files. That's usually under Window. You're going to go to Program Files. You're going to find your Paint.net file. And then you're going to go up here to File Types, and you're going to right click and paste that Photoshop.dll. What that's going to do is that's going to make it so that you can open, utilize, and access PSD files. Now let's go back to our iRacing dashboard here. I usually do this by going to the paint shop, and you can go to the paint shop here, and that allows you to paint your cars. Well, now where did I do this before? Maybe I did it here through my content. It's up here. So download templates. That's where I messed up. So you pull down the Paint My Cars, you go to download templates, and then you download whatever template is that you're wanting to paint. Today we're going to be painting on the Legends 34 Ford Coupe, so I would just click the download button here. That's also going to show up as a .zip file. You're going to go ahead and open it, and then you're going to copy it, and you're going to put it wherever you usually put paint files. Now I have one just called template, and so I would paste it in here like so. But since that file's already in the destination I'll just go ahead and replace it. Why not? Okay. Okay, so there's the Legends 34 Ford template. It shows up right here. So now that I've got that done, I'm ready to start doing some painting. Okay. Now, we could do a couple of things here. We could certainly open the template and work from the template. But I think for purposes today, what I'm going to do is just show you how to take an existing paint that you've already made and downloaded from iRacing or from Trading Paints and make a foil or chrome style number for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one of those TGAs. I keep all the TGAs that I've made in called iRacing TGA folder, which is where I've got it stored, but you would find it wherever you store it. I usually separate them by legends, and then I separate them by things that have custom numbers that are just for me or for people that want to pay for the pro fee, or a stamp number for the sim. So I'm going to go to the custom number folder here, and I'm going to open my A&W root beer car. So this is what the A&W car looks like when we open it in Paint, in Paint.net. And Paint.net works in layers. Okay, so the way this is going to work then is this is a single layer, and if I'm going to make these sort of chromium shiny foil style numbers, I'm going to have to come up with another layer. Now we do that down here on the bottom left. This square with the plus is the add new layer square, so I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to use the wrench tool and rename that layer, and I'm going to call this my spec layer. And the reason I'm going to call it a spec layer is because iRacing and Trading Paints work together to use something called a specular layer. And that specular layer is used to give texture to the paint surface beyond what Trading Paints usually allows. So I'm going to go in here to my spec layer, and notice that these check marks mean that both layers are visible. And since the spec layer is higher in the list than the background layer, if I were to turn the background off, I would still see the spec layer. If I were to turn the spec layer off, I'd still see the background. But if I have them both checked, I see the spec layer on top of the background layer. Okay. Now, whatever we're going to do, we have to work in the layer that's highlighted. So right now, the spec layer is highlighted, so anything that I did would happen in the spec layer. So if I decided I wanted to try to use a paint bucket to fill that 0, instead, I'd fill the whole layer because I'm working up here in the spec layer and there are no graphics on it. Now it's easy enough to undo. The undo button's right here, so we'll just undo that. Now if I go to the background layer, I can try that again, and now I've filled in that 0 with this god-awful mustard yellow color. So we really don't want mustard yellow zeros. Okay. So what I've done so far then is just to create this additional layer, and making these foil colored letters or numbers is going to be really, really easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. These are all my different tools, all right? This gives me this rectangle select. If I highlight it, I can pull up a rectangle and I can select everything inside it. And then if I wanted to fill that rectangle in with paint, I could. Now I really don't want to do that. Okay, that's not what I want to do, so I'm going to undo that. This is a lasso select. This just means, well, let's get out of that. Let's deselect everything here. This is a lasso select, so I could just, draw sort of a circle around everything and select it that way. Again, that would let me go in and fill inside that circle, but I really don't want to do that. My paintbrush tool, and up here is where I can pick the size of my paintbrush. It goes from 1 pixel all the way to 2,000 pixels. I can come in here with this big giant paintbrush and just start painting in colors, but I really don't want to do that either. I'm going to take that back down to a smaller size. This is my pencil tool, same thing, you draw with a pencil. This is a stamp, so if I wanted to stamp something, you have to first select an area to clone. So if you wanted to copy something, and then you could use a stamp tool and just come in and stamp it. But we really don't want to do that either today. Okay, so we've got stamp tools. This is a text tool. This tool allows us to make lines. This is our color selector, so if I needed to know exactly what color this orange was, I'd come in here and pick the selector, and then down here on the bottom left, it would show me what color I just picked. I did that with the left click button. If I wanted to do a similar thing for the right click, I could do the right click as well, so now I've got my orange and my brown selected. Okay, this is the eraser tool. This allows you to put gradients in things. This is a pan tool, which allows you to pan around. And these are 2 different kinds of movement tools. So that's all the different tools. And what I'm really interested in today is using this wand select button. Now if I use the magic wand here and I hold the shift key and I pick a color, it's going to outline everything that's that color. So I just outlined everything on the surface of this car. That could be very handy. But we're just wanting to work on the numbers. We're just wanting to work here on these 5 sets of zeros. And so what we've got to figure out how to do is how just to select those. We do that by using the control key. And we just want to select the orange parts because we're going to turn the orange into foil, but we're going to leave the shadows the same. So we're going to select with the left button on the mouse each of the orange zeros. We're going to select these guys. We're going to come over here. We're going to have to zoom in a little bit because I'm old and blind. And we're going to have to zoom in. And then we're going to scroll over. We're going to select this orange guy right here. Oh, that's not what we wanted. I got on the line. Back off a little bit. I'm going to select this orange guy right here. And you know what? I think I'll probably just go ahead and leave that. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be good enough for purposes of our tutorial today. We're going to select this orange guy here. So now what I've done is I've selected my zeros. That's my number. That's kind of been our family number. If you know anything about the Johnson Racing team, you know that since about 1962, we've been driving cars that have zeros on the sides. Mostly double zeros, sometimes a single zero. So what I've done is I've selected the numbers, and I've done all that with the background layer highlighted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the spec layer. Now in a spec layer, we can create textures. We can create a chrome texture and make everything beautiful in chrome, or we can create a flat texture and make it sort of an antique flat. We do that by creating a layer that's going to cover these numbers. Okay. Now if I want it to be chrome, I'm going to set the green and the blue, red, green, blue. I'm going to set the green and the blue to 0, and I'm going to set the red to 255. That's the maximum reflectivity. If I wanted it to be less reflective, I just put this number down a little bit. Okay, and the further down I put it, the less chrome look we're going to have. But we want this to be max chrome, so we're going to go to 255. And then I'm going to take my paint bucket, and I've got this, it looks to me like on the secondary, so I'm going to go ahead and make my primary bright red too, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now primary and secondary, this is left mouse button and right mouse button. So if you were working in 2 colors, you could color things by using the right or left mouse. But we're just going to make them both 255 so there's less opportunity for error. All right, and now we're on the spec layer, so we're going to pick our paint bucket over here, make sure it's selected, and then we're going to fill in inside these lines. We're going to fill these in bright red. All right. And we're going to zoom in a little bit to make sure that I don't make any big mistakes here. We're going to fill this big baby in bright red. We're going to come over here and we're going to fill this in bright red. And what that's doing is that's going to tell iRacing that when we load our car up, these surfaces should be like a chrome foil. This is like a chrome foil, almost like an aluminum foil texture or a chrome foil texture that you're going to see on the car. Everything else is going to look just like it does here. Okay, so now if we turn the background off, we can see just the spec layer. All right, and there's our spec layer right there. That's what we see. But what we want to do now is we want to save this. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Let's zoom out just a little so it's a little easier to see. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Save As. It's A&W Root Beer 3, but since it's my spec layer, it's only going to save what we see. Okay, so since I've turned the background off, the background's not going to be visible in this layer, so I'm going to call this Spec Layer. And you need to be sure here that you make this a TGA file, a target file. So we're going to save that as A&W Root Beer Spec Layer. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the template file for now, and I'm going to save it as A&W Root Beer Spec. Okay, so we save that. Here it's going to ask you to do some things. I usually just hit OK. Then it's going to flatten the image, and that means the 2 layers are going to get collapsed on each other, but since you can't see the background, it won't make a whole lot of difference. And you're just going to hit flatten. Now before you go do anything else, I always undo this so that I can continue to work if I need to. And what that really means is that my spec layer that got saved is a TGA file, but now I've kind of reverted. Now we need to check out this vehicle and see what it looks like. We want to know what this is going to look like. Is this kind of foil orange color what we want, or do we want something different? Well, how do we do that? Now's where you got to kind of trick iRacing a little bit. So one of the things that you need to do before you ever get this started is you need to have a practice session going, a test session, not an actual practice, but you need to go into the test part and have your car loaded into the test like I have here. This is a full chrome Puma paint that I made last night. If we want to take a look at it, you can hit Control and F12 at the same time, and that'll bring up this camera edit button here, and that allows you to do things like spin the race car around. I usually, just kind of take a look at things. That's what this car looks like in terms of the Puma car. We can zoom in a little. The zoom's right here. We can zoom out, or we can zoom in. We can pull in on the car and see what that looks like. And this is a car that's fully chrome, right? Every surface on it has a chrome look. And so this is kind of what we're going for, but we're only going to go for it with the numbers on our A&W car. So we're going to have to change this to our A&W car. How do we do that? All right, so we're going to go back over here to our files that are open. I'm going to do this from the desktop just to kind of show you how I do it. So from our files that are open, we want to figure out where we hid the files we just made. Remember, I saved that one under Template, and I called it A&W Root Beer Spec Layer. Okay. Now I'm going to take that file and I'm going to copy it. So you right click, you hit copy, and then you go to Documents, pick your iRacing file and open it, pick your paint file and open it, pick your Legends Forward 34C because that's what we're working in, and you open it. What you're going to see are all the car files that were stored from the last race that you ran. So these are the files that other drivers were racing, paint schemes they were racing. You're going to put your paint scheme in there. You're going to right click and you're going to hit paste, and that's the spec layer. Okay. Now we also have to put the actual paint layer in there. Remember, that's what we opened to work on. That's what I opened at the very beginning. So I'm going to go back over here to iRacing Paints. Actually, I'm going to go to Desktop. It's under iRacing Files for me. For me, it's under iRacing TGA files. We were racing a Legends car with a custom number, and it was this A&W Root Beer 3. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to go back over here. Sorry, I'm going to go back over here to iRacing, to Paint, to Legends Forward 34C, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to paste that file in there. So now I've got the A&W Root Beer paint layer, and I've got the A&W Root Beer spec layer. But you'll notice that these names don't look anything like those names. All right? So what this name is this is the car that driver number 547069 was running. This is the car driver number 547439 was running. This is the car driver number 449143 was running. You need to know your iRacing driver number. Well, mine, it happens to be 522997. So I'm going to change this base layer to car. I'm going to use the underscore key, and I'm going to put my driver number in. Okay. And then over here on the spec layer, I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to change it to car underscore spec, S-P-E-C, underscore, and then my driver number. Okay. So now what that's done is that has made two new files. Well, I've made those two new files, but that's made these files so that iRacing can recognize them. So now, if I go back to my iRacing test session, I can use the control button, I can hit Control R, and what that does is that refreshes my paint job. And that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid that we'd end up having some issues here with the numbers that I've chosen. So let's go over here. Let's close this big baby. Let's go to the 34 Ford Coupe. Let's go to Paint Car. Let's go to Number. Yeah, that's not going to work either. So we really can't see our number here that we've been working to try to create. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do something else here to kind of help iRacing understand what's going on. We could do a couple of things. I think one of them we could do is to just load this as our paint scheme. And we can do that now. So now that we've done this, if we go back to our file folder, what we're going to see in our Legends 34 Ford files, we're going to see a new file called spec.mip. And this is the file that iRacing uses to try to determine what your car is going to look like on the track. And what we're going to end up having to do here is we're going to have to upload this to Trading Paints. So we're going to come over here, we're going to go to Trading Paints. We're going to, here's what we want. We're going to go to My Paints. I'm going to leave this. I was working on a Legends car scheme in Trading Paints. We're going to go to My Paints. We're going to go to Legends Ford 34. And we're going to pick Custom Number, and we're going to choose a paint. And we're going to choose a new paint. We're going to upload it. And our car number is going to be 00. We're going to select that file, and the file we're going to use is that file from the Legends 34 Ford. So Documents, iRacing, Paint, Legends Ford 34, Car 522997, and we're going to hit Upload. And while we wait on that to upload, we're going to talk about how Spec Layer works. So what a Spec Layer does is it basically identifies the area on the car that's supposed to have a certain texture, and it only texturizes those areas. So everything else on the car is going to look the same. So that we're going to have that same sort of glossy brown paint. We're going to have the same textures over all the decals. If we've done this right, the only thing that's going to change is the texture of the numbers themselves, and they're going to go from being regular sort of gloss paint numbers to being a foil style number. Right. But if we upload this paint, which we're uploading right now, if we don't tell iRacing and tell Trading Paints that these numbers are supposed to look different, when we reload the car, it's going to look the same. So what we have to do is we have to upload a Spec Layer. So we go back to Choose Paint, we go to Add Spec Map, and it says Select File. Well, we're going to go to that same place where we were before. We're going to go to Documents, we're going to go to iRacing, we're going to go to Paint, we're going to go to Legends Ford 34C, and we're going to upload the car spec, car_spec_522997. We're going to open that, we're going to upload it. Okay. Now that uploads pretty quickly because it's not as graphics intensive, right? There was very little graphics on that. So now this is the car we're running. We should be able, to go to our iRacing test session, hit Control-R again, and it didn't work. So we're going to get out of that, and we're going to just go ahead and reload our test session and see if maybe that's going to help us out. So we're going to go ahead and hit Test Car on Track. Now, I apologize in advance for how long this is going to take. It still thinks the simulator is open. I'm going to apologize in advance for how long this is going to take because rural Colorado internet is not the best internet in the country. We certainly, my download speed can be often as low as about 1.2 megabits per second, which is pretty low. It's about 4 times faster than dial-up was in 1997. So sometimes it takes a while for these things to load. But while that's loading, we'll go back over here and remember that the only thing that should be shiny when all is said and done here are the zeros. Nothing else should be foil if we've done our homework here. All right, so the test session's coming up. It'll take a little bit longer for us to go through the load screen, but we're going to go ahead and do that as well. The other interesting thing about what we're doing here is that this process we can use to make anything we want look chromium on the car. Okay, anything we want we can make look chromium. So we're going to get in, we're going to see if the paint scheme refreshes, and it just did. So we should, when we get to a point where we can stop and look around the car, we should be able to take a look at a nice shiny orange foil numbers on our A&W hot rod here. So we're going to come out of turn 4 onto the front straightaway, go past the start finish line. Given the sun angle, I think somewhere right in here looks like it's going to be a pretty good place to stop. So let's stop and hop out, and let's see what we're seeing here. So you can see that the numbers definitely look different. They definitely have that chrome orange color to them. You can see the shine on the surface. There's a good picture of it. You can see that sort of orange foil look. We'll go ahead and go past here a little further. We'll stop the car right there. And then we're going to hit Control F12. Remember, those are the two keys you want. And that's going to allow us to get in here and rotate around the car a little bit. So we're going to rotate around here on the right. So you can see that the numbers kind of have that chrome foil look. If we don't like that, we can zoom in a little. So we're going to zoom in here some, pull in tight. There you can see the chrome foil look on the number. As we rotate it, you can see the reflection coming off that sort of chrome foil look. So we were able to create chrome foil look on our orange zeros. It's actually a little dark, and that tends to happen. So what you may find that you want to do is, if you want these to be a little brighter, you may have to come up with a lighter color for the orange inside those zeros, so that it tends to match that foil color a little bit. And you can do that mostly with trial and error as you do some work. You can certainly zoom in or out at your leisure here. We're zoomed in quite a little ways. Again, you can see up on the roof of the car up here behind the banner now that you really have that chrome, sort of chromium foil look to all of the letters and numbers, or sorry, all the numbers on the race car. And we can rotate this around again. Control F12. Can rotate this around and see if we ended up with the same sort of chromium look on that front number. And you can see that we did. Well, the wall got in the way there. You can see that we did. If you'll watch this car as it comes back around, you'll see that foil reflection come across the front, and right there you can see it over here. And we can continue to rotate the car around and look and see if we got something interesting on the back as well in these back numbers. And the same, the wall got in the way again. Let's change to the chase camera, and then we'll zoom in on the chase, and we'll rotate around here a little bit. And again, you can see the reflection coming across the foil here. So we kind of have this chrome foil number right there. It's a little dark. If I were working on this paint scheme and trying to really update it, I would probably lighten that orange a little bit and try to get the foil orange to be a little more visible. But in any case, that's kind of how you do it. So we're going to Alt Tab out here, and that'll allow us to pull up our working bar down here. We'll go back to the paint layer, and that gets us to back to the beginning. So that's how you would create a sort of a chrome foil layer. We could make one other change here if we wanted to very quickly. We're going to make the background layer visible. We're going to get rid of the spec layer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to paint this stuff white. Now, white is maximum color saturation, and when you do that, everything's white. We're going to go ahead and paint these numbers white, and we're just going to do the big three numbers here. We'll leave the others, and then we're going to hit File, and we're going to Save As, and we're going to call this our ANW3 base, and I've got to save that as a TGA file, so we're going to do that. We're going to hit Save. Go ahead and let it compress. We're going to tell it to go ahead and flatten. Then we're going to undo that, remember, because we want these two to be separate. Now, we just changed a color here. I just want to do this to show you how that changes the color of the numbers on the car. So we're going to go back to our folder where we saved this, which was in our template folder. Remember, we renamed it. We called it A&W Root Beer Base. We're going to copy that thing. We're going to go back to Documents, iRacing, Paint, Legends Forward 34. We're going to do away with car number 52997. We're going to do away with we're going to leave the spec layer there because we don't need to worry about it. And we're going to paste that thing in, and we're going to rename it. We're going to rename this guy. Remember, car underscore 522997. And for you, that'll be your iRacing driver number. For me, my driver number is 522997. Yours is going to be something different. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our test session, and we're going to hit Control R, and it's going to refresh the car, and it refreshed to the crappy numbers back over the top. So we would have to do that whole process again. What I was hoping to show you there is that what we'd end up with is silver chrome numbers. Right? So the chrome feature takes on, you know what, let's try something different here. The chrome feature takes on the paint tone or the color of the number underneath it, or the layer underneath it. So we're going to upload a new paint here. We're going to go upload the paint that we just put in with the white numbers. All right. And then we're going to restart our sim. So we're going to get out of this. We're going to close it, and we're just going to restart our test session. Come on. Again, the wonders of rural Colorado internet. And we're going to go ahead and hit the test car on the track. Now remember, we didn't change the spec layer. So what I'm hopeful for here is that since we didn't change the spec layer, yeah, we're going to need to add the spec map. So we're going to do that while this is loading up. Oh, we don't have a spec layer for that, so we're going to have to go back. Yeah, I kind of let's see what happens here. I kind of messed this up, but we'll see what happens, and see if we get the effect that we want. But since we don't have a spec map loaded, we may not get the effect that we want. But since I've got a spec layer in that folder already, it could be that we do get the effect that we want. I just don't know yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, so the spec layer is still showing up in here, so it should, with any luck, it should turn out all right. So let's go ahead and get in the test session here. We're going to throttle the car, we're going to run around the corner again, and we're going to try to get into this, again, into this far corner so that we've got a pretty decent light to work with. Actually, we may go through the corner around to the other side. It just depends. Let's go a little further this time. So we're going to get out of the car here, and we're going to take a look and see what the race car looks like. And so we can see the orange chrome on the back, but if we go to TV1, we've got full silver chrome on the sides now. So we can again go to Control F12. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And you can see now we've turned those zeros to absolutely 100% silver chrome. And that's because white is super reflective. And this is going to look like chrome plating on a bumper, for lack of a better word. And we can kind of see that as we rotate through. So if we go ahead and let the car run a little, you can see those silver chrome plated numbers. You can rotate the car here on the Z-axis a little and try to look in from the top. We can see that there. And we can see that we've got some full chrome. So if you want to play with chromes, that's one of the things that you can do. Certainly, you have lots of options as long as you understand that you go to a spec layer, and in that spec layer, anything that you want to have a chromium texture, you need to paint some shade of red. All right, so these need to be painted. These need to be here, and it needs to be some shade of red. More chromium is the higher numbers, 255. Less chrome, less shiny, for lack of a better word, is the lower numbers. So if you didn't want it to be fully chrome, you might make it 140, and that would make it less chromium plated. That's how you do it. So if you're interested in learning more, I think I'm going to try to do another video later in the week where we'll show how to make things a flat. So you'd have a flat texture instead. So instead of having a chrome texture, you'd have a flat texture. The only difference, the process will be the same, but we use a different color. And then we'll talk maybe also later in the week about how we can color specific parts of the car. For the Johnson iRacing team, this is Aaron Johnson. I hope that you learned a little bit of something today. If you're interested in painting, I hope that I've helped you out here. I hope that you're able to take your paints and load them up on iRacing and go out and have a good time, because the whole point is to go fast, turn left, and have fun.